The odds are shifting, and Bryce Young is back at the number 1 spot, so we're diving into the chaos of what happens if Carolina takes him at number 1. Find out the possible domino effect on this 2-minute drill mock draft. So as stated before, the Panthers go with Bryce Young, quarterback out of Alabama, who offers extremely high decision-making and pro readiness that should have the Panthers competing for playoffs in year 1. But things absolutely go off the rails after that, as the Texans are reportedly not into Stroud, so instead they punt on quarterback and take Will Anderson Jr., edge rusher out of Alabama, taking the top player on their board for the defensive impact that he should have. The Cardinals are annoyed to not have Anderson, but only for a second before their phone starts lighting up with calls. Ultimately, I have them agree to a huge deal with the Titans, similar to the Trey Lance trade a few years back, and the Titans are more than happy to select CJ Stroud, quarterback out of Ohio State, to be the future of their franchise. Currently, things are stagnant in Tennessee, but getting a young quarterback like Stroud brings new optimism for their future. With the 4th pick, the Colts select Florida Gators quarterback Anthony Richardson, as Shane Steichen has worked well in quarterback development, so taking the prospect with the highest ceiling is worth the gamble here. Richardson is raw, but if you can unlock his full potential, you can get a quarterback similar to the caliber of Luck and Manning, even if he's a different style of quarterback at that. Next up, the Seahawks draft Tyree Wilson, edge rusher out of Texas Tech. Wilson has a very cool frame for a guy that can play numerous roles in the front 7. His size and pass rush should be perfect for the Seahawks as they look to add to the trenches with this priority pick. The Lions are next up, and they select Jalen Carter, defensive lineman out of Georgia. Carter had a strange offseason to hit his stock a bit, but he settles into Detroit and has a chance to become a star centerpiece for a young, up-and-coming defense. With the 7th pick, the Raiders are up and select Oregon cornerback Christian Gonzalez. Gonzalez has all the tools and a tremendous frame to make him an extremely safe bet at the corner position. The Raiders are a bit shallow at the position, and while that could change before the draft, getting a stud like Gonzalez here at 7 would be hard for it to ever be a bad selection. The Falcons opt to trade out of pick 8, and the Packers are now on the clock. With Aaron Rodgers gone, they have to make a move, and they add Lucas Van Ness, edge rusher out of Iowa. Sorry for the deception, but Van Ness is a great fit for the big edge rusher prototype that the Packers look for, and with speculation that the Bears and Eagles are very in on him, the Packers move up to secure him and lock down a great presence off the edge opposite of Rashawn Gary. Next up are the Chicago Bears, and they select Paris Johnson Jr., offensive tackle out of Ohio State. Braxton Jones is definitely a key piece for this team moving forward, but I think he moves over to right tackle, and the Bears feel confident they have their bookend tackles of the future with a lot of promise here. Following that, the Eagles are up on the clock, and they select Devon Witherspoon, cornerback out of Illinois. Even with Slay and Bradbury brought back, both are getting older, so adding to the room with a young piece ready to contribute early and take over the starting role in time is well worth the selection here at 10. The Cardinals are now back on the clock after their trade with the Titans, and here at 11 they select Jackson Smith-Njigba, wide receiver out of Ohio State. I have the Cardinals trading Hopkins to the Panthers for 2 fourths, and while the Cardinals still have weapons, JSN here at 11 makes a lot of sense and adds a high-end receiver to the room to help open up the passing game once Kyler returns. The Texans are back on the clock at 12, and this time they go ahead and take Kentucky quarterback Will Levis. I know a lot of people are going to be annoyed with this, as Levis is mocked with the rest of the quarterbacks going in the top 5 usually, but the likelihood of that happening is very, very minimal. Even him going in the top 10 is somewhat unlikely based on draft history. Look, will the Texans get Levis or any of the other quarterbacks if they punt on one at 2? Maybe not. But teams have much more familiarity and insider information on the likely playout of draft night, and if they know Levis or someone else falls close into this range, then there's a solid shot they take Anderson at 2 and take a quarterback at 12, or maybe a small trade up to get that guy. Next up are the Jets at 13, and they select Broderick Jones, offensive tackle out of Georgia. In this scenario, they trade for Aaron Rodgers, but they still hold on to their first-round pick, and they use the chance to add some much-needed protection for the offensive line and help Rodgers as he enters year 1. Jones should be very promising in this scheme. At pick 14, the chaos isn't done yet as the Patriots select Georgia tight end Darnell Washington. Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki are set to hit free agency next offseason, and Bill loves to draft in advance. With Washington's incredible frame, blocking ability, and high-end athleticism, he could be a great long-term piece for this offense. It's not the expected pick, but when has Bill ever taken the expected route? With the 15th pick, the Falcons are on the clock again after their trade with the Packers, and they select Georgia edge rusher Nolan Smith. Smith is a perfect fit for the 3-4 defense in Atlanta, and I think the NFL is going to highly covet this guy. For the Falcons, this pick is both acquiring a top-end player in the class and addressing a major need. At pick 16, the Commanders grab Joey Porter Jr., cornerback out of Penn State. Porter Jr. has the size and processing to be a high-end cornerback in the NFL, and Washington operates in heavy zone coverage so that I think he could thrive in the scheme and be a high-end star for the secondary desperate for talent. Next up are the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they also go cornerback in Maryland's Deonte Banks. Banks has a tremendous profile with high upside to entice teams, and the Steelers are the ones to take a swing on his potential as they are looking to secure a top-end cornerback, and with Banks' skill set, they could certainly have one. The Lions are up at 18, but they decided to trade back with the Kansas City Chiefs, who get in position to take Tennessee offensive tackle Darnell Wright to play right tackle for them. The Chiefs will never make the mistake again of not investing enough in their offensive line, and once Wright fell far enough, they knew they had to jump at the opportunity to move up and secure him, and hopefully lock down their entire offensive line of the future to keep the offense at a high level production. The Bucs are on the clock at 19, and while there are a lot of different paths they could go, they decide on Texas running back Bijan Robinson. Getting someone to be the identity of the offense in the backfield while they wait to figure out the quarterback is a solid move, and Bijan is probably the best player on the board here at 19 and well worth the selection. At pick 20, the Seahawks are back up, and they select Brian Brzee, defensive line out of Clemson. The Seahawks head into the draft with plenty of need on their defensive line, and leaving round 1 with Wilson and Brzee is an excellent step in the right direction for the team. After the Dolphins' forfeited pick, the Chargers are up at 21, and they select Boston College wide receiver Zay Flowers. Flowers will operate early as a deep threat for this offense, but I think he'll provide much more in time and be the wide receiver which is much needed as Keenan Allen is getting older. The Ravens are up at 22, and with the signing of Odell Beckham Jr., their priority moves to the defense, and they add South Carolina cornerback Cam Smith. Smith fits the physical play of the Ravens' defense and adds to their cornerback room as they look for additional help outside. Smith is a very good cornerback that should be discussed with the higher-end guys in this class more than he currently is. With the 23rd pick, the Minnesota Vikings are up, and they grab wide receiver Jordan Addison out of USC. Addison was one of the top receivers in college football last season, and opposite of Justin Jefferson, he should be able to produce at a high level and be a great selection here in the back half of the first. Next up are the Jaguars, and they draft Northwestern offensive lineman Peter Skoronski. I think Skoronski ultimately ends up playing guard in the NFL, and for the Jaguars that works out well for them. He can start at guard and maybe even kick out if needed if Robinson leaves or if Little doesn't take the next step. Still, adding him to this offensive line is a great way to help protect Trevor Lawrence, which should be priority 1 for the Jaguars. The Giants are on the clock at 25, and they select Quentin Johnson, wide receiver out of TCU. Johnson has dropped a bit in the eyes of the public, but it still has plenty of impressive stuff as a receiver, and the Giants could use some size on the outside to help further open up their passing game. At 26, the Dallas Cowboys select Michael Mayer, tight end out of Notre Dame. I like Ferguson, so the Cowboys passing on tight end in round 1 wouldn't surprise me at all, but Mayer offers a big name and high floor value at a position where dependability is key and in an offense that's looking for pieces to help them take the next step forward in order to contend, so Mayer makes sense. After losing Tremaine Edmonds in free agency, the Bills add Arkansas linebacker Drew Sanders to their squad. Sanders dominated in his first year at linebacker and has the versatility and size to be well worth the selection here at 27 and should help Buffalo defense continue to play at a high level. The Bengals are next up, and they pick Ohio State offensive tackle DeJuan Jones at 28 to help fill the right tackle position. Jonah Williams reportedly wants out, Collins is hurt and likely cut, leaving the Bengals with a need at the position, and Jones fills in well on the right side. Adding to the trenches is never really a bad idea, and Jones offers incredible size to engulf all defenders who try to go against him. At pick 29, the New Orleans Saints are on the clock, and they select Adetomiwa Adebawore, defensive lineman out of Northwestern. Adebawore has very intriguing upside and versatility for a defensive line that is desperate for more talent. While he's been a bit underrated through the process, Adebawore truly has some impressive upside to be a high-end contributor in the NFL. The Eagles are back on the clock at pick 30, and they draft Clemson edge rusher Miles Murphy. Murphy's projected to go a little bit higher in the draft, but here he has a little bit of a slip, but the Eagles are more than happy about it, adding to their edge rushing room and helping strengthen their trenches as they gear up to attempt to run it back this season. And the Lions are up at 31 after their trade back, and they select Florida offensive guard Osiris Torrance. It appears Vaitai is inevitably going to be cut, so getting Torrance to fill a spot on the line continues to strengthen this unit and adds to what is already one of the top offensive lines in the NFL. For the second and third round, I'll show picks 3 at a time and just discuss what I believe is the most notable of the 3, so we're going to go a little bit faster here, make sure you keep up. At 32, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Brian Branch, safety out of Alabama. Branch slips into the second round, and the Steelers address their strong safety and nickel position need with one pick here as Branch pairs up with Fitzpatrick to form one of the more exciting NFL safety duos in the league. At 33, the Houston Texans select Jalen Hyatt, wide receiver out of Tennessee, and then the Arizona Cardinals select Kalijah Kancey, defensive lineman out of Pittsburgh. At 35, the Indianapolis Colts select Cody Mock, offensive guard out of North Dakota State. And then at 36, the Los Angeles Rams select Keanu Benton, defensive lineman out of Wisconsin. Benton is someone I think could end up being viewed higher in this class due to the lack of run defenders out there in the interior defensive line prospects this year. And with the Rams losing Robinson and Gaines, this was a much-needed addition to the group. At pick 37, the Seattle Seahawks select Josh Downs, wide receiver out of North Carolina. And at pick 38, the Las Vegas Raiders select Trenton Simpson, linebacker out of Clemson. Simpson could easily be a first-round pick, but the linebacker position is one that can easily be a bit unpredictable for value. Simpson falls to the Raiders here at 38, but should no doubt be a quality contributor for the defense and be a young centerpiece for the future. At pick 39, the Panthers select B.J. Ojulari, edge rusher out of LSU. At 40, the Saints select Felix Onyedike-Uzomah, edge rusher out of Kansas State. At 41, the Tennessee Titans select Anton Harrison, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma. The Titans managed to hold on to their second-round pick in this draft and get Anton Harrison out of it to help add protection for CJ Stroud. They'll lack first for the next couple of drafts, but this is a great start for this year's draft for Tennessee. At 42, the Packers select Dalton Kincaid, tight end out of Utah. At 43, the Jets select Joe Tippmann, center out of Wisconsin. At 44, the Atlanta Falcons select John Michael Schmitz, center out of Minnesota. And after their trade back from 8, they get 45 from the Packers and select Emmanuel Forbes, cornerback out of Mississippi State. And then at 46, the New England Patriots select Blake Freeland, offensive tackle out of BYU. Freeland seems to be going lower in most mocks, but with his athletic profile, experience, and still being only 22, and length to go along with that, I think he's going to be highly sought after by the NFL, and his profile fits what Bill Belichick loves in his linemen, so don't be shocked if he ends up a Patriot sometime during the draft. At 47, I have the Commanders selecting Jack Campbell, linebacker out of Iowa. At 48, I have Kelee Ringo, cornerback out of Georgia, going to the Detroit Lions. The Lions add Kelee Ringo to their secondary where they're more happy to take a swing on the defensive back. If worst case scenario happens and Ringo doesn't work out, they have Okudah, Mosley, and Sutton to hold things down in their room. But if it does work out, it's a great addition to this defense and sets them up for a very talented cornerback unit. At 49, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers selecting Marvin Mims Jr., wide receiver out of Oklahoma. At 50, I have Antonio Johnson out of Texas A&M going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. At 51, I have the Dolphins selecting Jahmyr Gibbs, running back out of Alabama. And at 52, I have the Seattle Seahawks selecting Tennessee's Hendon Hooker. And while they punted on quarterback in round 1, they take Hooker to heal up and possibly compete for the job next season with an organization that seems to fit well for what he brings to the quarterback position. At 53, I have the Bears taking Will McDonald IV, edge rusher out of Iowa State. At 54, I have the Chargers selecting Luke Musgrave, tight end out of Oregon State. The Chargers continue to add to their weapons, and this time it's Musgrave, who's a high-end athlete with a great frame and upside to be one of the best tight ends in the league. Medicals will be crucial for Musgrave, but the potential's there to intrigue teams for sure, and at 54, I like the value. At 55, the Lions select Keon White, edge rusher out of Georgia Tech. At 56, the Jaguars select Clark Phillips III, cornerback out of Utah. At 57, the Giants select Julius Brents, cornerback out of Kansas State. And at 58, the Dallas Cowboys select Zach Charbonnet, running back out of UCLA. The Cowboys add their new member of the 1-2 punch in Charbonnet, who will provide Pollard with quality power running help as the Cowboys add another strong piece to their offense. At 59, the Buffalo Bills add another wideout to their unit as Cedric Tillman gets to this pick from Tennessee. Diggs is a clear wide receiver 1, but questions surrounding the rest of the position lead the Bills to have a high upside option here in Tillman and absolutely jump on it. At 60, the Cincinnati Bengals select Tucker Kraft, tight end out of South Dakota State. At 61, the Chicago Bears select Luke Weipler, center out of Ohio State. At 62, the Eagles select Steve Avila, offensive guard out of TCU. After losing Samalo in free agency, they're able to replace him here at 62, and just like that, the offensive line gets back to full strength to continue their dominant play up front. And then at 63, the Lions select Dian Henley, linebacker out of Washington State. On to the third round now, and at pick 64, I have the Chicago Bears taking Zach Evans, added to a three-headed monster with Donta Foreman and Khalil Herbert, and he himself provides plenty of upside for the Bears to have a nice stable of backs, but also Evans could potentially take the lead role as the season progresses. At 65, I have the Houston Texans selecting Ricky Stromberg, center out of Arkansas. At 66, I have the Cardinals selecting the Hurricanes cornerback Tyreek Stevenson. At 67, I have the Broncos selecting DJ Turner, cornerback out of Michigan. At 68, the Broncos are back on the clock, and they select Tank Bigsby, running back out of Auburn. With the uncertainty surrounding Javonte Williams, the Broncos secure Tank Bigsby to handle their running duties with Pirine. If Williams returns, then Bigsby should still provide a solid second option behind him to help split the workload. And at 69, I have the Rams selecting Isaiah Foskey, edge rusher out of Notre Dame. At pick 70, I have the Raiders selecting Mozzie Smith, defensive lineman out of Michigan. At 71, I have the New Orleans Saints going Xavier Hutchinson, wide receiver out of Iowa State. Xavier Hutchinson gets to round 3, and the Saints add him for an outside presence in a room that looks awfully strong on paper. If Michael Thomas continues to struggle battling injuries, though, it's great to get a guy like Xavier Hutchinson there to step up and contribute in the passing game and help take some attention off of Olave. At 72, I have the Cardinals selecting Derek Hall, edge rusher out of Auburn. At 73, I have the Houston Texans selecting Jervon Dexter, defensive line out of Florida. And at 74, I have the Cleveland Browns selecting Tuli Tuipulotu, edge rusher out of USC. Tuipulotu weighed in lighter than expected, making him more of a pure edge rusher than hybrid type that he was hyped up to be, but he still has plenty of value and fits the Browns' profile for defensive end. Playing opposite of Garrett, he should fare quite nicely. At 75, the Atlanta Falcons select Raheem Jarrett, wide receiver out of Maryland. At 76, I have the Patriots selecting Darius Rush, cornerback out of South Carolina. At 77, I have the Los Angeles Rams selecting Matthew Bergeron, offensive line out of Syracuse. And at 78, I have the Green Bay Packers selecting J.L. Skinner III, safety out of Boise State. The Packers get an absolute stud in Skinner to play strong safety for them, and while he is dealing with the pec injury, once healthy, I expect him to prove he's a big-time player and a huge steal here at 78. At pick 79, I have the Indianapolis Colts selecting Riley Moss, cornerback out of Iowa. At pick 80, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers selecting Carter Warren, offensive tackle out of Pittsburgh. The Steelers reunite Kenny Pickett with his old left tackle, and I really like the value here. Warren was discussed as one of the top tackle prospects in the class in the preseason, and then he got hurt during the season. And while maybe he was a little overhyped, he's still a quality lineman and could potentially find a starting role on the Steelers as a great value here at number 80. At 81, the Detroit Lions select Trey Palmer, wide receiver, Nebraska. At 82, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Jalen Duncan, offensive tackle, Maryland. And at 83, the Seattle Seahawks select Siaki Ika, defensive lineman out of Baylor. Seattle grabs another defensive line piece, and this time in the form of a nose tackle. Ika has a tremendous frame and could be a huge piece of the Seahawks' run defense as he develops further in the NFL. At 84, the Miami Dolphins select Henry To'oTo'o, linebacker out of Alabama. At 85, the Los Angeles Chargers select Travis Hodges-Tomlinson, cornerback out of TCU. At 86, the Baltimore Ravens select Zach Pickens, defensive lineman out of South Carolina. And at 87, the Minnesota Vikings select Terrell Smith, cornerback out of Minnesota. Terrell Smith is an expected late riser of mine in this class, and for the Vikings, they're in need of secondary help. Smith offers impressive press man capabilities and should be a great fit in Flores' coverage scheme. At pick 88, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Dylan Horton, edge rusher out of TCU. At pick 89, the New York Giants select Alex Forsyth, center out of Oregon. The Giants get their hopeful starting center here in round 3 and continue to bolster the offensive line. Forsyth has some impressive ability on the interior and would be a huge need filled by the Giants here in round 3. At pick 90, the Dallas Cowboys select Reginald Wright, cornerback out of Oregon State. At pick 91, the Buffalo Bills add Wanya Morris, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma. At 92, the Cincinnati Bengals select Israel Abanikanda, running back out of Pittsburgh. The Bengals may or may not be content with their running back room right now, but long-term they're likely looking for Mixon's replacement. Abanikanda here in round 3 gives them an intriguing ad with great playmaking speed and a quality frame to help at least add to the running back talent on the team. At pick 93, the Carolina Panthers select Tyler Steen, offensive lineman out of Alabama. At pick 94, the Philadelphia Eagles add Sidney Brown, safety out of Illinois. At pick 95, the Kansas City Chiefs select Isaiah McGuire, edge rusher out of Missouri. McGuire is a sleeper of mine in this class with nice frame and length to make an impact at defensive end. The Chiefs get him here at 95, and they form a scary young duo of him and Karlaftis to guide their pass rushing future. And then we have the compensatory picks. At 96, the Cardinals select Olusegun Oluwatimi, center out of Michigan. At 97, the Commanders select Zach Kuntz, tight end out of Old Dominion. At 98, the Browns add Devon A-Chain, running back out of Texas A&M. At 99, the San Francisco 49ers add Jartavius Martin, safety out of Illinois. At pick 100, the Raiders select Sam Laporta, tight end out of Iowa. The Raiders move on from Waller, and while they've added some Band-Aid guys, I think a guy like Laporta provides a cool piece to bring promise for the future of the position, one that many Raider fans would be welcome to see. And then the 49ers wrap up this mock with the last 2 picks, selecting Corey Trice Jr., cornerback out of Purdue, and Nick Saldivari, offensive lineman out of Old Dominion, who I expect to play right tackle for them. And that's all we have on this 3-round mock. Let us know in the comment section how we did. Give us your thoughts. Maybe don't be such a jerk if you disagree, but hey, I know it's bound to happen anyway. Please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and this is the 2-minute drill.